Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 207, cover dated July 1986. So this is a very designy, very striking cover by John Romita Jr. There's no signature visible on the cover, and my guess is like issue 199, this is John Romita Jr. inking himself with a brush. Because a lot of these background lines here are rather like lines that you can see on the cover of 199 where he inked himself. Of course, Wolverine slashing down the page itself. The story inside does feature Wolverine, but he's not the main focus of the inner story. That is Rachel Summers, Phoenix, and Wolverine plays the role of antagonist, strangely, on the inside story. So let's open this one up to our splash page, and we have the title of the story, which is Ghosts, because as it turns out, Rachel is haunted by the ghosts of the people she killed and the people she lost in the dystopian future that she's from. So we've got Wolverine here atop some fairly detailed rubble, calling out Phoenix's name, or code name. So the creative team here is down amongst the rubble: Chris Claremont writer, art John Romita Jr. and Dan Green. So that is Romita Jr. doing breakdowns and Dan Green finishes. Tom Orzechowski letterer and Glynis Oliver colorist. So here we have Rachel seemingly in the future, recognizing Wolverine, a friendly face as she thinks, but he attacks her with his claws and cuts her, and then she strikes at him with her telekinetic powers and runs. Romita Jr. always very good at running poses here, always a different one in every panel. And then she catches sight of herself in the glass of a building and sees herself in her hound costume, and strikes out at the reflective surface with her TK powers again. Great colouring on these pages by Glynis Oliver too. So she walks past a poster featuring the X-Men with headings in terms of whether they've been captured or killed. Killed in the case of Storm and Kitty Pryde, captured in the case of Nightcrawler and Cyclops, and killed in the case of Wolverine, but Wolverine is stalking her. And so while Rachel is remembering and what occurred in the future she's from, we learn a little bit more about that future and her story. So here she thinks, when at last I was of no more use as a hound, the government sent me to the camp, figuring I'd be slaughtered by the inmates as a traitor. I deserved it, she thinks, but the surviving X-Men took me in. They protected me. Storm, bless her, said she understood. Kitty and the others forgave me. All of them save one. And that one who didn't forgive her was Wolverine. And she continues, our world was dying, our race destroyed one by one. Those few remaining X-Men were killed until I alone was left. Somehow I used my power as Phoenix to escape into the past. I fled to the time before I was born, hoping, praying for a chance to prevent this apocalypse. So that's back to Uncanny X-Men 184. And here she's thinking desperately as we see these skulls and feral dogs in the foreground here. How could I be back where I started unless I never left? So she and we, the reader, are wondering what's going on in all of this. So let's turn the page. But really before that, actually, this is important because she feels that without the second chance, she can never make up for the awful thing she's done. That's the second chance of being in our timeline and trying to prevent her apocalyptic dystopian future. But Wolverine grabs her from the other side of the wall, slams her to the ground, pops his claws, and cuts her into the heart. But she barely notices. Her torment at last is over. Her burden can be laid down. The ghosts will be forever silent. That's the title of this story, as she finally joins them. But it was all a dream. And she wakes up in this unfamiliar bedroom, which we'll learn where that is shortly. And she sees her reflection in the mirror with the hound markings on her face. And so she uses her TK powers to smash the mirror. And this brings Colossus and Kitty running to check is she all right, because they hear her cry out. And she says, no, it must have just been a bad dream. But Kitty has had enough of Rachel's bad dreams and lashing out and breaking things. She says here, you know, Ray, the X-Men are guests here in the Morlock tunnel, so that's where they are. This is someone's room. You're wearing borrowed clothes, and this mirror is probably a prized possession. Great way to repay the Morlock's hospitality. So when they leave, Rachel says, who does she think she is talking to me that way? Except she's right. When I lose control of myself, I can do untold harm. I don't mean to, but I can't help myself. So this is a theme that runs throughout this particular issue in terms of Rachel's self-control. Does she have self-control, or does she give in to her rage and her emotions and feelings? She tries to fix the mirror with her TK powers, but all that results in is this fractured reflection of herself in the mirror. Great work by John Romita Jr. here on this particular panel. And the shards of the broken mirror fall to the ground once again. And nearby, Wolverine, who seems to be recovering from the wounds he sustained in the previous issue, or previous issues, like Uncanny X-Men 205 in particular, his battle with Lady Deathstrike, and the Hellfire Cyborg Commandos, wakes up, and it seems he has been witness to Rachel's dream, that there is some kind of strange psi-link connecting the two. As he says here, weakly dragging me into your nightmares, killing us both. Gotta stop, and he falls over. So it turns out what happened was the X-Men, after leaving San Francisco, found Wolverine, or he found them, and also Nightcrawler has hooked back up with the team too. And Storm decided to bring Wolverine to the Morlock tunnels so that the Morlock healer could help heal him. So obviously at this point in Wolverine's kind of characterization, his mutant healing factor is not at the power levels that it is in present day 21st century Wolverine comics. So he's really taken a beating and needs some additional help from the Morlock healer. In the meantime, Rachel has got up and got dressed, and she's wearing some of the same punk style clothes as the Morlocks, and indeed as Storm and Callisto. So she asks Storm, how's Wolverine doing? And Storm kind of cold shoulders her back into conversation with Callisto, and that puts Rachel out of sorts, and Rogue fills her in. After the stunt you pulled in San Francisco when you used our life essences to fight the Beyonder, you asked for my help, says Rogue, and I gave it, but you didn't ask Colossus or Wolverine, and Storm said no. So this refers back to Uncanny X-Men 203. You took her life force anyway, and while you asked Shadowcat, the kid's wondering now if that decision was really her own. So Rachel is really getting put in her place here by her fellow X-Men, and she's going to have to deal with the consequences of her previous actions and her overriding the wishes of her teammates, in particular Storm. And then our scene switches to apparently Japan, and the narration here is interesting. The air is sweet, scented with jasmine and high mountain pine, deliciously crisp and cool. She has never known such beauty, such serenity of body and soul, such peace. So where is she and what's happening? What's the transition between this panel and this one? So here we find ourselves, as I said, seemingly in Japan, and Rachel's there. and enjoying the evening or the night, and someone's coming through the main gate of the palace, and it turns out to be a bestial, ripped up Wolverine, calling out for Phoenix and coming after her like a figure in a nightmare. And so Rachel flees up the stairs onto the roof, and Wolverine follows her right up onto the rooftop and slashes her with his claws. And we've got this red background to the panel indicating that he's drawn blood. I really like these two pages. This is tremendous work by Romita Jr. and Dan Green. And I want to show you these two pages in black and white because they look absolutely beautiful in black and white, because it's a night scene. So I'll just overlay that carefully on the comic, and you should be able there to see the level of detail, the level of careful line work here on these two pages. Beautiful stuff. This is from the Essentials edition, the black and white Essentials edition. So really worthwhile getting the Essentials edition too in order to see some of this artwork in tremendous black and white. So let's turn the page here, and we pick up with Rachel, who has been having some kind of nightmare again, and she's up in Manhattan in an alleyway, and she emerges onto the street, and it seems to be nighttime in the city. And she wonders here, and this is interesting, she thinks to herself, I tried to supercharge Wolverine's healing powers as I did once before, back in X-Men 202, but this time it didn't work. I only made things worse. Maybe that's what intensified our dream link. So this is a little bit of a mystery. Why is there a dream link between Wolverine and Rachel? Is it because he was the one X-Man in the future she comes from who never forgave her for being a hound? Or is it my own little pet theory that Scott Summers is not actually Rachel's father, but it's Wolverine? This point about a kind of connection between Wolverine and Rachel comes up again in Uncanny X-Men annual 12, the Days of Future Present annual. And wait a minute, not 12, number 14, let me correct that. Uncanny X-Men annual number 14, Days of Future Present, the one drawn by Art Adams, where Rachel wasn't able to have a psychic connection to Cyclops in it when Ahab turned her into a hound again. And in the B story, there's an interesting dialogue between her and Wolverine, where Wolverine remarks their similarity. So, you know, it could be coincidence, it could just be parallels between these two characters that are fundamentally driven by emotion. Wolverine has his under control, Rachel is learning to get hers under control. But the Psylink stuff is interesting, and as I said, my little pet theory is that there are little clues, little hints that maybe Wolverine is Rachel's true father. So then we go into another one of these nightmarish dream sequences. Great colouring here once again by Glynis Oliver, where Rachel is running through a primordial Earth, and she trips up and Wolverine is coming after her, and she finds herself in her hound costume once again. She claws at her face, yet no blood is drawn. And then we have this horrific sequence where she pulls her skin off herself and reveals the Rachel Summers that might have been. This demure, ordinary looking girl, but Wolverine once again is right behind her and leaps on her. This is a fantastic panel here, and again the red coloration indicating that he's getting ready to kill her, but she blasts him with her TK powers, rather like Wolverine is killed in by a Sentinel in Uncanny X-Men 141, the very first issue that we see Rachel in that dystopian future. So interesting little kind of visual resonance or parallel there in the way that she kills Wolverine. And then she comes to on the subway late at night, and this NYPD cop, Officer Circo, wakes her up and offers to give her a place to scrounge up a place for her to crash in a decent meal, but she runs away and telekinetically makes him trip up so that she can get up onto the surface, Spring Street, and she comes by this destroyed building months ago, the night she met the X-Men. So this is calling back to Uncanny X-Men 184. And there was a loft here then, a man's home, but it's ashes and he's dead because of me, she thinks. And then it becomes a point that she can't remember his name. So she thinks to herself, why can't I remember his name? And then she remembers what happened. She ran into his club. He took me home. His thoughts were gentle. He meant no harm. He was really concerned about me. While he made dinner, I had a bath. It was wonderful, but then suddenly his sonic presence vanished. I couldn't sense him anywhere. He was dead, murdered, and here he is, horrifically here. And who has murdered him? Except for a sort of vampire, Selene. And now Selene has become the Hellfire Club's newest Black Queen. So Rachel now has determined a purpose for herself. She thinks it's past time I did something right and evened the score. So she's been haunted by the ghosts from her future, and now she's determined to do something right. So back in the Morlock tunnels, the X-Men discover that Wolverine's gone, and they discover too that Rachel's gone, but Storm decides that they should go after Wolverine because obviously she's concerned about his weakened, injured state, and so they leave Rachel be. And then we pick up with Rachel later, as the narrative caption makes plain at the Monarch Towers, and she picks up this guy, Friedrich von Rome, who turns out to be a rook of the Hellfire Club, and she uses him to get into the Hellfire Club. So here she is, making her way in on his arm. She's telepathically controlling him. She leaves him in a particular upstairs room, in a bedroom, and she takes from one of the maids a costume, a uniform, in order to get to her ultimate destination on the 3rd floor, which is where Selene's personal quarters are. So here we are. She's in the room. Selene's Black Queen costume is on a mannequin there, and Selene is in the 4-poster bed. So this is an interesting little sequence too, where Rachel thinks back to the fact that Black Queen was her mother's title when Mastermind seduced her soul and turned her against the X-Men. So reference back to the seminal Dark Phoenix saga. She fought her way free, but emerged transformed into Dark Phoenix, all because of this accursed club and people like you, she thinks. And we see the ghosts of the Hellfire Club kings toasting with Jean Grey as Black Queen there. Nicely rendered by John Romita Jr. and Dan Green. So here Rachel is wrestling morally with the question of what she should do to Selene. She thinks to herself, you're responsible for untold misery. If not stopped, you'll cause more. But is this right? For a moment, only weeks ago, I followed in Mom's footsteps. I became Phoenix, and through that power, one with the universe. So this is reference to Uncanny X-Men 203, when she was taking on the Beyonder. I beheld life in all its myriad glory. I couldn't kill then. Can I do so now? Remember, her plan was to kill the entire universe in order to take out the Beyonder too. But she couldn't do it. That was different. Those were innocent lives. The Hellfire Club is evil. Its inner circle, these Lords Cardinal, chose to be what they are. This is no less than they deserve. And so she transforms into Phoenix and attacks Selene, who wakes up, of course, recognizes Rachel, and thinks, I knew she possessed awesome potential, but never dreamed it would be so quickly realized. She radiates such power, it's like battling a living star. But I'm not without resources of my own. I can animate every object in this room. And she throws them at Rachel, who easily puts up a TK wall and stops the debris from striking her. Again, great art here, great combination of line and color on this page, really capturing the dynamism of the battle between the two in the room. So then what happens is Rachel accuses Selene of killing the man who helped her for no other reason than that he was kind to me, she says. And Selene, it turns out, remembers his name, Nicholas Damiano, a courageous heart, a noble soul. His essence fed me well. And this really irks Rachel because Selene says she honours him, yes, as I do all whom I slay, as I shall you. He had meaning to me, as he obviously had none for you, else you would have remembered. So this really sends Rachel over the edge. And Selene also, we get her thoughts that she is, she has both dreaded and yearned for this moment when she finally faces a foe worthy of her, capable even of destroying her. So the two go at it. And in the meantime, the fire alarm has gone off. Why? Because this silhouetted figure has set it off. So everyone gets out of the club. The building is emptied. And just as Rachel is getting ready to kill Selene, who enters the room, except for Wolverine, and tells her to stop before it's too late. So here we have our climax and denouement, where Wolverine, she's surprised to see him, and she thinks she's fallen into one of her dreams or nightmares again, but it isn't the case. It is waking life. And Wolverine argues with her that she shouldn't self-appoint herself as judge, jury, and executioner. And Rachel says to him in reply, "Bold talk, little man, from a natural killer." That's right, that's something we have in common, he says to her. We've both killed. Odds are we'll kill again. But this, Rachel, this is murder. Because of course Selene didn't attack Rachel, so she's snuck into her bedroom and attacked her there. And Wolverine says, justify it, rationalize it, however you like, it's still wrong. It isn't worthy of you as Rachel or Phoenix, and it sure as blazes isn't worthy of an X-Man, so we're getting to the heart of it. I don't care, she responds. You should, you better, he says. We call ourselves heroes, girl. That means we have to stand for something no matter how hard or how much it hurts. We represent the dream, Professor X's dream. My dreams are nightmares, she retorts, and we've seen it. And Wolverine says, we have to play by the rules. And so ironic coming from him, the guy who's broken the rules, or did, or used to, in the beginning of his career as an X-Man. Now he has become the moral heart and center of the team, and thoroughly signed up to Professor X's dream. And Phoenix here, this being of potentially limitless power, says she makes her own rules. She's talking about herself in the third person. This is your last warning, Wolverine says to her. I won't ask again. Come away, Rachel, please. And know that people will die because I did. I know enough ghosts. There are too many ghosts. I won't allow any more. The only way to stop me, Logan, is to kill me. And so he pops his claws. Snicked. What a sound effect here. And that's it. A black background rather than red to this final sound effect panel concluding the issue. So what a cliffhanger too. And you know, there has been debate and discussion about this setup, about Wolverine's speech to Rachel. Selene has killed many people. She did murder that man who was trying to help Rachel, Nicholas Damiano. Selene certainly deserves some harsh penalty, whether it's the death penalty or otherwise, is an open question. But something Claremont revealed in interviews about this issue when people questioned him about it, when they were unhappy with this debate between Rachel and Wolverine that concludes the issue. Claremont said that Wolverine was concerned about Rachel turning into Dark Phoenix, that was what motivated him to give this speech and to talk Rachel down from killing, that was his ultimate fear. But I think, you know, the clues are in there in the issue. The Rachel's memory of her mother as Black Queen, the memory of what happened afterwards, in terms of Jean Grey turning into Dark Phoenix, and you know, that was all on account of Jean Grey embracing her own dark side. And is Rachel going to embrace hers? And what's the implication in terms of Dark Phoenix emerging once again via the avatar of Jean Grey's daughter, Rachel? These are the kind of like subtext here. But some people, as I said, were a little bit unhappy that it wasn't made overt or explicit by Wolverine. Even in a few thought balloons, maybe that would have helped. But it's a powerful ending nonetheless. An excellent issue, in my opinion, by the creative team. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary of Uncanny X-Men 207. If you did, please like the video. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.